background and rise of dissent. The Iranian Revolution, also known as the Islamic Revolution, occurred between 1978 and 1979, resulting in the toppling of the Pahlavi monarchy and the establishment of an Islamic republic. The roots of the revolution can be traced back to the reign of Muhammad Reza Shah Pahlavi, who came to power in 1941. Despite modernization efforts and economic growth, his regime faced mounting discontent due to autocratic rule, corruption, and widening socio-economic disparities. This dissatisfaction led to protests and opposition, with various groups, including secular nationalists, leftists, and religious factions, seeking change and reform. 2. The Shah's regime and growing unrest. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, the Shah's regime continued to face challenges as opposition to his Western-backed policies and perceived disregard for traditional Islamic values intensified. Additionally, the Shah's oppressive secret police, the Savak, further fueled public resentment. Mass protests erupted in 1978 after the cinema fire in Abadan, which led to nationwide strikes and demonstrations. Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, an exiled Shia cleric, emerged as a prominent figure in the revolution, rallying the people with his calls for an end to the Pahlavi monarchy and the establishment of an Islamic government. Three. The Shah's ouster and Khomeini's triumph. As protests escalated, the Shah's regime struggled to maintain control, and the military eventually declared its neutrality, refusing to fire on the protesters. This pivotal moment forced the Shah to flee Iran on January 16, 1979, seeking exile in Egypt and then the United States. In the vacuum left by the Shah's departure, Ayatollah Khomeini returned to Iran on February 1, 1979, and a referendum held soon after confirmed the desire for an Islamic republic. Ayatollah Khomeini became the supreme leader of the newly formed Islamic Republic of Iran, marking the official end of the Pahlavi dynasty. 4. Early days of the Islamic Republic and internal struggles. The establishment of the Islamic Republic saw a period of euphoria among many Iranians who hoped for a more just and equitable society. However, the revolution faced internal challenges as different factions vied for power and influence. Moderates and secularists clashed with hardline Islamists seeking a more rigid interpretation of Islamic law. The revolutionary government embarked on a process of purging perceived enemies, reforming the judiciary, and establishing Islamic revolutionary courts to try those accused of opposing the new regime. Five. The Iran hostage crisis and international isolation. In November 1979, a group of Iranian students, following Khomeini's orders, seized the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, taking 52 Americans hostage for 444 days. This crisis, known as the Iran hostage crisis, strained Iran's relations with the United States and led to international isolation. The hostage crisis ended in January 1981, just after the inauguration of U.S. President Ronald Reagan, further exacerbating Iran's diplomatic isolation. 6. The Iran-Iraq War and its consequences. In 1980, Iran faced a major external challenge when Iraq, led by Saddam Hussein, launched a full-scale invasion. This marked the beginning of the Iran-Iraq War, a devastating 8-year conflict that resulted in millions of casualties and widespread destruction. The war had far-reaching consequences, both domestically and regionally, and further strained Iran's economy and resources. Seven. Economic challenges and internal dissent. After the Iran-Iraq War, Iran faced economic challenges, exacerbated by international sanctions and diplomatic isolation. The government's efforts to rebuild the country and fulfill the revolution's promises of economic improvement and social justice encountered difficulties. Unemployment, inflation, and social unrest persisted, leading to dissent and demands for change from various segments of society. 8. Attempts at reform and political stagnation. In the 1990s, under Presidents Ali Akbar Hashemi Rafsanjani and Mohammad Khatami, Iran experienced attempts at political and social liberalization. Khatami's presidency, especially, saw efforts to expand civil liberties and foster a more open political atmosphere. However, these reformist efforts faced resistance from hardline elements within the regime, who sought to maintain strict control over the state and prevent any challenge to the established order. Nine. The 2009 presidential election and Green Movement. The 2009 presidential election, which saw the re-election of Mahmoud Ahmadinejad amid allegations of electoral fraud, sparked mass protests known as the Green Movement. The government's harsh response to the protests and the suppression of dissent further strained domestic and international relations. 10. The nuclear issue and international sanctions. Iran's nuclear program became a major point of contention with the international community, leading to suspicions that Iran was pursuing nuclear weapons. The UN Security Council issued a series of resolutions, and international sanctions were imposed, significantly impacting Iran's economy and isolating the country further. 11. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, JCPOA, and its aftermath. In 2015, Iran and the P5-1, the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council plus Germany, reached a landmark nuclear deal known as the JCPOA. Under this agreement, Iran agreed to limit its nuclear activities in exchange for the lifting of economic sanctions. However, the deal remained contentious both domestically and internationally, and in 2018, the United States, under President Donald Trump, withdrew from the JCPOA, reinstating economic sanctions against Iran. 12. Current challenges and regional influence. In recent years, Iran has continued to face economic challenges and internal dissent, with widespread protests reflecting grievances over economic hardships, political restrictions, and human rights issues. Iran's regional influence remains significant, with its involvement in conflicts in Iraq, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen shaping the broader Middle Eastern landscape. Conclusion. The Iranian Revolution of 1978–1979 was a pivotal moment in Iran's history, leading to the establishment of an Islamic Republic under Ayatollah Khomeini's leadership. The revolution's outcomes have been far-reaching, shaping Iran's domestic politics, social structure, and regional and international relations. As Iran continues to navigate its path in a changing world, the legacy of the revolution remains a defining factor in its development and interactions with the global community.